The Hilltop Glove Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Hilltop Glove Podcast. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Laddie Howard, also known as L. Howard, a father, entrepreneur, and lobbyist. Laddie is a man of many talents. In 2015, he founded L. Howard Leather, driven by his passion for creating exceptional leather goods using traditional techniques. Since then, L. Howard Leather has maintained its commitment to producing handmade leather goods of the highest quality, using only the finest materials and craftsmanship. From leather bags, wallets, clutches, and belts, L. Howard Leather creates only the best of the best. In 2022, Laddie Howard, now the CEO of the company, expanded the product line to include fragrances that tell his unique story of coming of age. These fragrances are meticulously crafted with a blend of essential oils and botanical extracts to evoke a sense of nostalgia and memory. Each scent captures the essence of growth and transformation, telling his unique childhood experiences during his childhood summers in Sumter, South Carolina. Besides being a lobbyist, Mr. Howard is currently the Director of Regional Governmental Affairs for the City of Columbia as well. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Really happy to have you. You're the type
You
of
guys,
person
this
I
is
like
his
to talk
first
to. Yeah.
podcast, so this should be very interesting,
Yeah,
to say the least. I'm going to
I'm
enjoy this.
excited, though.
And Laddie's my friend, so
Go ahead, disclaimer.
we chop it up all the time. So this is like a regular day.
Yep.
But I wanted you guys to meet him because he's incredible.
Yeah, I'm excited
Yeah.
about this.
But
Yes.
tell us a little bit about yourself for the people that don't know you, your background,
Okay.
upbringing, influences.
Well, it's real simple, man. I'm from South Carolina. I'm a country boy.
Mhm.
I grew up between Sumter, where I'm from, and Bamberg, which is where my mother's family is from. And so I have a lot of experiences that come when I talk about my childhood. I'm usually talking about both places, Sumter and Bamberg. Both sets of grandparents, one from Sumter, one from Bamberg. Finished high school in Sumter, went to South Carolina State University.
Excellent.
Left South Carolina State and went to law school. I'm an attorney.
Mhm.
So I finished law school at the University of South Carolina. And while I was in law school, I became a lobbyist.
Mm.
And so I started lobbying when I was still in law school. What I discovered about myself once I finished and started traveling, because I love to travel.
Hey.
I mean, and I love to travel over the world. So when I started that with my wife, I would always kind of do the same things. I would always, if I'm in Mexico or Italy or Savannah, Georgia, which is
Yeah.
where she's from, I always go to the leather shops and cigar shops, and I gravitate towards music. So it was funny because that eventually became my life, fragrance and leather. It became my artistic expression. I never did anything like that much when I was a kid. I used to draw a little bit. I would always carve and do little things, but it came out later in life for me.
Excellent.
So as I developed and as I continued to express myself, and the things about kind of my personality just came out, and it became wine and leather and cigars and fragrance.
He really
Oh.
creates an experience, you guys. The
I can
L.
tell, man.
Howard
I
experience.
say his voice is creating an experience right now. I ain't gonna lie. I've had to borrow your voice.
Man, my
Just
voice
for a
changed
little
in
while.
the 8th grade. I didn't even know my voice changed.
What?
My voice changed in the 8th grade. I had this crush on a girl named Nancy McFarland. And she was a little older. She was in school with my cousin.
Yeah.
And my cousin got her phone number for me. I'm like in Bamberg. I'm in the country. Can't see her. But I got the phone number. I called her up. And first thing she said was, "You have a deep voice." And it's crazy, because when I was a kid at my grandmother's house, my father's mother, ones that lived in Sumter, her friends would always call her. And I would, when you're a kid,
Answer.
we didn't have cell phones or anything like
No.
that. So it was a big deal to answer the phone. So the phone would ring, I would run to answer the phone. And so I would answer the phone, give it to my grandmother. And my grandmother's friends would say, "Oh, your granddaughter's with you today. Your granddaughter's visiting," because my voice was high.
Mhm.
Sounded like a little girl,
Yeah.
as a kid. And so, but in 8th grade, man, it just
Click
All
over
that
there.
changed.
flipped. Yeah, flipped.
Wow,
People thought I
wow.
was a little girl answering the phone when I was a kid.
Dang.
It's crazy.
So how did you deal with that? I know this is a side question, but how did you deal with that change? With like, were you being treated differently and et cetera when your voice changed? I had to ask this question because as a man,
No. My voice wasn't. I mean, it was just that they couldn't tell
they
if I was
couldn't
a girl or
tell.
a boy because
Wow.
kids,
You don't know.
you
Yeah.
don't know. You don't
You
know.
don't know gender. You can't
Yeah,
tell.
there's no masculinity or
Nah,
femininity
nah.
to it for a girl.
Yeah.
It's just a kid's voice. And so it was nothing to no, I had to deal with it when it changed. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when
That
my
part.
voice changed, it became something to deal with because first it was really, I know it sounds odd,
Yeah.
but it was a shock to me because I didn't realize that my voice had
You were
changed.
still
Right.
talking and being yourself.
I was being myself. And then she told me that my voice had changed. And I was like, and then I started, and I hate the way I sound.
Shut up.
Really?
Really?
Oh yeah, I hate the way I sound. I don't like listening to myself. None of that.
In the same way.
Yeah, y'all are weird.
Yeah.
Both of y'all. And I'm
I
telling you,
don't
y'all don't sound bad. Really? You don't like how you sound?
Mm-mm.
I'm
No,
telling you,
I know how to use my voice.
Yeah.
But I don't like listening to myself.
And so it's
No,
like
that's
sounds
true.
like fingers. What's say fingernails on a
Yeah.
yeah.
For me,
For
it
you,
kind of does. Yeah.
Man, I'll say, did you have any siblings growing
I
up?
have a one sibling.
Okay.
We're very close. Her name is Catherine or Wendy.
Mhm.
Everybody calls her Catherine.
She's
But she lives.
older.
No, I'm the oldest. She's 4 years younger than me. She lives in Wilmington, North Carolina. Husband, 2 kids.
Excellent.
Great husband, beautiful girls. Her husband is my fraternity brother, as a matter of fact.
What's your
so
fraternity?
I'll let you guess throughout the. There's only one.
No, God,
There's
There's
only
only
one.
one.
He said there's only one.
Can
There's
you
only
tell by
one.
his confidence he's a Scorpio?
Yo, you're Scorpio. See, yeah, of course she's gonna know this. All right, she's gonna call it see Alpha for Alpha.
Indeed.
Yeah, man. There's only one. I already know all this. Look, good Lord
Yeah.
Jesus. But that's cool, man. That is so cool. I'm telling you like this. A lot of folks that we speak with always like to see confident black men.
Yeah.
It makes, especially growing up in the South. I didn't. My brother and I, we moved from here to New Haven and Wilmington, North Carolina, and back here. And my father, the way that he raised us, always to be comfortable and confident in yourself, and to also always be able to express yourself, right? Not to be afraid to do so. It's always cool seeing a self-actualized grown black man
Yeah.
because there are not many,
Right.
It's
example-wise, right?
Yeah.
And it is sad.
because that's not our essence.
No, it's not.
Our essence is to be leaders. It is to be confident.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
How did you grow into your confidence of like your art forms and the different projects that you do?
I don't think you're anything without your family, good or bad,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Preach.
So my mother, my father. My mother, I mean, both equal, but my mother in particular was just very insistent as I grew up that we have experiences. So my parents, we couldn't travel internationally. I mean, we're basically, and I say basically because there's a fine line sometimes between middle class
And poverty.
and try.
Yeah.
So I grew up, had a great childhood, no problems. We traveled,
Mhm.
in the U.S. And my mother made sure that I read all the time, that we traveled all the time. I saw her reading all the time. And I grew
Examples.
up in the church. I grew up in the black church.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So, you got to do your Easter speech and do all these things.
Yeah.
All the things that we take for granted now. I grew up with those as a kid because we didn't have all the technology. So playing outside and being involved in activities, if your parents are really concerned about you. My mother in particular, I will say this. My mother always wanted us to be a whole lot more than she was.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah.
And she's a great woman. And she, both of my parents went to college and are educated. But they're first generation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And so they traveled and really instill that. When you're a kid, they get on your nerves. My mom got on my nerves because she was wearing me out, man.
She was like,
Between my whoopings and pushing, making sure I had but my mom made sure I had everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like you were the oldest, so you had to get those
Yeah.
first couple of whoopings.
Oh
You
yeah,
had to be the
It
example.
had to be drilled.
I hate to say that, but we were just talking with somebody. That's what he was speaking. His elder brother and sister, they didn't make any mistakes, and he said he had to get all of the leather.
Man,
Yeah.
my mom said I had to get it. Boy.
See, yeah,
But it wasn't just my parents, man. I mean, I
community.
I'm blessed by my family. I mean, my grandparents. I had, when we get into talking about the bags, each piece is named after a family member.
Let's get
And so-
into it.
Yeah.
Get
So,
into it. Tell us
well,
about it.
She's
but I'm
ready
just
to
saying,
get to the
I'm ready to get to the leather.
She's ready. No,
But
seriously,
he
she
know
is
my
ready.
my
She
favorite is
is
the
ready to get to the
fragrance.
leather. That's a whole topic
Yeah.
that she
let's-
has ready.
but the reason that my bags are named after obviously family members is not just paying homage to them,
Mm-hmm.
but like my grandfathers. So I knew my great grandparents.
Oh, really?
Right. Yeah, I knew my great grandparents. And each one, just imparted something to me, particularly my grandparents, because I spent so much time with my grandparents and
Mhm.
not just, we're from South Carolina, so I didn't travel in occasionally during the holidays. I mean, I spent time
Here.
Here.
with my
With 'em.
grandparents, growing up with them. So, not just my parents, but the things that grandparents instill, especially for someone my age. You have a lot of things that we are a bit removed from now, but you think about the older generation.
It's not that long
Mhm.
ago.
It's not that long ago, and a lot of things that
Mhm.
they had to deal with societally and racially,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
the things that they couldn't do that I could do. I remember my grandfather would always say, "Boy, you gonna be a farmer?" Because he was a farmer, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my grandfather, not a sharecropper, a farmer.
A
Yeah.
real farmer, yeah.
One grandfather was a sharecropper. One grandfather was a farmer.
Wow.
And the grandfather that was a farmer, my mother's father, he had seven. He and my grandmother had 7 children, and every child that wanted to go to college went to college. They went to the military, went to and he did that farming like 400 acres of land. He had his own tractors.
Mhm.
I used to sit on the tractors with him during summer. Wore the seat of my pants out, riding on the tractor with my grandfather.
Yeah, if you don't know about that.
Yeah.
that
they're right. Yeah,
bumping,
they're bumping. Yeah.
that Massey Ferguson. I mean, that steel shoulder. I used to sit on that thing for hours and hours, man. But when you spend time like that, especially with older generations, there is no way to explain how and what it imparts to
It's
you.
invaluable.
It's invaluable.
I like that you said that because, again, we always have a that we have somehow it just occurs. It's nothing. That's why I always say God works in mysterious ways. Whenever we have our podcasting sessions, and the one thing that is coming through today is generational gaps in communication skills,
Mhm.
proper networking, presenting yourself in a way that people will take you seriously, so that you can move forward in whatever ventures that you want to set out to accomplish. And I know the first interview that we had today with Chef Jay, one of her things that she talked about, she was talking about being around her grandparents and how they raised her and the stuff that she learned and things that were imparted upon her. And I was talking about the fact that my brother and I, like, our grandmother raised us for a couple of years. And I tell people all the time, they would be like, "Oh man, my grandmother raised me." I was like, no, I'm so happy that happened, because we got to meet a lot of our older family and friends, relatives rather, but we got to learn certain lessons about preparation, being timely with things, your management of your time, resource usage, how you need to make sure that you're ready to go out into the world. The things that are now that we take for granted, that we don't need to take for granted, because in a switch, it could go back.
Yeah.
And so, growing up, we had a different mindset and perspective than a lot of the folks that we grew up with. And it was a good thing, because now we're getting to see how it's important to our day and age now and what we do. And so, speaking with somebody like you, who's also telling us these things, I think it's important specifically for Bridging the Gap, because our podcast is geared toward making sure that millennials have an understanding of that, and that we have some kind of grasp on things to help us become successful in what we want to do. Because a lot of us, we grew up and we never had a handbook. We never had somebody to sit down and mentor us properly on what we should do, because I hate to say it, we had crack that occurred between 1984 and 1995 that was really bad. And it kind of like wiped out a whole generation of folks.
Right.
And we kind of missed out on a lot of education, unless you were lucky enough sometimes to get tutelage from the elder generations and et cetera. So when folks listen to this and they hear you talk about that, you don't realize you're giving them gems. They're going to be getting these gems, and you're going to be getting out to a group of people who normally wouldn't get to sit down and have these conversations. And I know that's when Tamaya said, "Hey, y'all got to speak with Lana. Y'all got to speak. We need to be on here." I understood what she meant by that, because of course she is very well cultured on these type of things, and so she understands the importance of people hearing that, like sitting on that tractor and wearing that seat out. I know what you're talking about, right? And people are like, "What do you mean?"
Man.
Because we have family members that own farms, and the importance of being able to have your own food.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're quote unquote poor. If you can have your own food, you're rich.
Right.
But
And
out
it
of
gives you-
everything that he does, I
Mhm.
feel like you make everything yourself. Like you engineer, you craft everything, and that goes
Yeah.
back from
Yeah.
your childhood. You see
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like you watched your grandparents do everything from start to finish.
My father.
Yeah. So
And you have the
it's drilled
vision
into you.
and the vision to be able to
Problem
think.
solve.
Yeah. Oh my goodness gracious.
Problem solve.
Critical thinking and problem solving skills is something that's lacking from our generation
Mhm.
and the ones under. It's because things are so
Handed.
microwave.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get
It's
things.
across our culture, though. It's not
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
the younger
It's
generation.
it's
People
us.
don't. I think there's a disassociation with having to do something
Mm-hmm.
and having arrived
Yes.
Thank you.
and living, a good quality of life. And I think a lot of times we confuse standard of living with quality of living.
Mhm.
And
Elaborate.
Like what's the difference?
Elaborate. Yeah.
well, we have a very, I believe, and this is just Laddie, but we have a high standard of living in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And from most of the places that we come from, we have a very high standard of living. Nowadays, after running water and electricity back in the
point.
40s and 50s,
Good point.
our new standard of living, where it used to be plumbing and lights
Mm-hmm.
from my father and generations after him, for us it's internet access
Yeah.
and the ability to have a cell phone, right? And if you do not have internet access today,
Mm-hmm.
it is in many ways the equivalent of not having running water and plumbing and electricity
Back
Great
in the
point.
day,
from
yeah.
generations ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, though, all of those conveniences, all of those technologies, all of those things that we have to have, I'm not saying they're bad.
Mm-hmm.
There's a miracle to our technologies now that I appreciate. But we have a high standard of living when it comes to, you got to have the latest phone and you got to have internet access, and everybody's driving a new lease car, and
Yeah.
you got to take this trip, and you're not doing anything on the trip but going to a resort, so you're not seeing the culture.
You're not seeing the
But you
culture.
got to post pictures on Instagram. And so there's a very high standard of what it means to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
But our quality of life sucks because all we do is work to spend money to pay bills and to have these conveniences that basically we're so worn out from working to pay the bills and to upkeep the image that we are successful, when most of the times all we're doing is just paying the bills.
That's it.
Yeah.
To
And
have
so-
access to.
So you have the standard of living,
Mhm.
but your quality of life is not there.
Right. It's not equal.
not equal.
Yeah.
That's what Chef Jay was saying earlier. Like I said, it's a theme to, like she was saying, quantity over quality. She says, please aim for quality.
Yeah.
Because of course her big thing is health, nutrition, and wellness, and a lot of us we don't realize that we're doing that to ourselves too. The ability to be aware.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wasn't here for her interview,
Yeah.
but by virtue of her being a chef and what I'm thinking the tenor and tone of her conversation was, just with what she does, food.
Mm-hmm.
We eat way too much.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
So-
you're right on the money.
And you
keep
think
getting
because
preached.
you're doing well, we'll go to Halls or
yeah.
somewhere else. And,
Oh yeah,
and it's great. I go there too.
yeah, it's
okay?
nice. I like it. It's good.
It's nice. But this is my 8th day. Tamaya knows this. I haven't eaten since last Friday, right? Because
Mhm.
I go through these.
I tell people you can do that. They think I'm crazy. They think
Yeah.
I'm crazy. They
You
think I'm
don't need
crazy.
it.
Thank
You
you,
don't need
Laddie.
the
Thank
food.
you for co-signing me. I told them. They said, "What do you mean?" I said, "No, it's scientifically proven. You don't need food for this much." They said, "For real? No, the only thing you need water." They said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, your body does not need all that to run. It needs to be cleaned out every once in a while." They said, "Cleaned out?" I said, "Oh my Lord Jesus, why did I read these books?" Because now I'm talking to people and I sound like an
They don't
alien.
believe. They don't
Yeah,
believe.
they don't
and they
believe
don't think
me.
they can do it.
Yeah, they
They're
don't.
like, man, if I don't have something to eat, I'll go crazy.
Yeah,
But it is, when we talk about, when Chef Jay was talking about quantity over quality, because we don't grow our own food, right?
Mhm.
We go to the grocery store, most of it is crap.
yeah. Nutrient
And we think we have to have this level. If you're really successful and you're doing well, then you want to go to these restaurants and you want to eat this food and eat that food, and you want to do that every day. Every day is breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
And so you're eating a lot of food when your body doesn't need it,
Mm-mm.
right? So
Mhm.
you're eating you have a high quantity of food, and you're just stuffing it. So diabetes and heart problems and cancer and all that stuff that we have,
Mhm.
it's coming from us just loading our bodies down with a high quantity of very poor food, although it costs a lot and it's presented in a way.
Say it again. That's
Yeah,
another part.
It costs a
It
lot.
costs a lot.
And so you're like, I'm doing well because I can go to these restaurants and do X, Y, and Z, or I go to Publix, go to the grocery store and buy my food. But the most nutritious food, not my mother, she'd kill me if I said this, my wife. She makes these amazing tomato pies. Have you ever had tomato
Oh,
pie?
I love tomato pie.
And tomato pie is so
It's the
doggone good.
good. So good.
Never had
Nisha
it.
makes
When
tomato
she
pies.
makes it again, I'll let you know so you
Yeah.
can come try it. But Stacy makes this tomato pie with tomato. She's made it with tomatoes that we buy from the grocery store, and then she's made it with tomatoes that I just grew outside in the yard.
Uh-huh.
Man, it's night and day
You can
difference.
tell.
The one from the grocery store that you buy from there, they look pretty when you buy them.
Yeah.
That tomato pie is watery and bland. When she makes it with the tomatoes that I grow in the yard, I mean, you would think you're sitting in the middle of Italy eating. I mean, they just picked the basil, the rose, everything off the vine, and just put it. It was just magically there when it tastes that good. But the tomatoes out of the grocery store, they're nowhere near as good. And that's the way it is with life,
Yeah.
And I tell people, this is something that I think is funny. And I tell do this test. And it's the easiest test in the world. Go to the grocery store, smell the food. Go to your farmer's market or go find a farmer who sells the stuff grown and go smell it. We've been growing our own tomatoes, right? I didn't know how good a tomato plant smells. It's almost better than flowers.
Wow.
Very fragrant.
Very fragrant. It's supposed to have a smell. When you go to the grocery store and you realize that there's no smell on any other, that means that you are missing out on nutrients. The vegetable has not really had a chance to grow properly, or they've taken certain things out of it or turned it off through GMO to make it easier to grow so it doesn't attract insects. But that smell's supposed to be that. It attracts insects, but who cares because you get the B vitamins from the insects.
If you want a good tomato, it's got to have a blotch on it.
Yes.
It's got to have a little section you need to cut out.
If the bug wants it and I want it, that's why I tell people that means it must be good enough for them. That's
Hashtag if the bug wants it, I want it.
Because you can put it out. You put one of those tomatoes from the market outside. I mean, from Publix outside. That thing fly around it, right by it. That's not food. But there's some wisdom in that, and that's one of the things too that I did learn from my grandmother with things that she would cook for us. And I remember growing up, I had an aversion towards squash and onions and okra and tomato and all that stuff. And she would just she would slowly, when we start moving in with her, it was well, we got to eat this food. So she would slowly cook it first in certain ways so we get to like it. And then I realized that she wasn't buying her food just from the grocery store. She used to take us, she used to drive us up here to go to the farmer's market or to the PD farmer's market or to people that she knew that grew stuff and buy her eggs and et cetera and everything. And we thought that this was so this is how we were supposed to do it. And so I remember when moving back in and being with my father and stuff, and we were like, so why aren't we getting our eggs from that person on the street? Grandma, that's where she go to get eggs from. He's like, oh, because you're getting brown eggs, blah, blah. And he realized, okay, so because that's who he raised him. That's how she did it. So he's like, all right, so y'all know now. Y'all know what's supposed to happen. So my dad, his big thing is he'll cook healthy. Oh, my Lord.
An egg from the farm?
Yes.
I tell people this all the time. People don't understand what eggs are supposed to taste like. Like the flavor, most people eat these eggs out of the grocery store. They're not eating what I grew up with. The flavor is completely different.
And then I didn't know that you didn't have to
say it.
Put them in the refrigerator. Somebody gave me extra. I was like, what?
You keep them out.
She was like, no, keep them out. I was like, are you sure?
Yes. It's sealed.
The flavor on just the organic, just the chickens that are running around the yard is so rich. It's completely different.
Buttery and happy.
Yeah, it does have a buttery taste. There's a natural buttery taste to it.
He was like, you don't have to add anything to it. You don't need salt and pepper, nothing like that. You're
I've
like,
been
really?
missing so much.
Yeah. But all right, my fault.
So
you can have fun.
We like the country, as you can see.
Yeah, man.
So I think the great for me artistically, the thing about that is everything that people aspire to. The doctors, lawyers, billionaires, millionaires, whatever. People aspire to have that money for any number of reasons, but the number one thing that people want to do is to acquire stuff that comes from the country.
Yeah.
Oh, good point.
All of the beautiful artistry.
Yeah.
Their landscapes painted on the countryside. Sometimes you have architectural paintings, but it's the art and the expressions are things that come from just nature and basically that people want to dine on. You're cultured if you're a wine drinker, right?
It's true.
Wine is nothing but farming.
Yeah. It's the country as you can get.
It's as country as you can get. They're aspiring to have the best wines from all over the world. People want to go to a restaurant. It doesn't matter. You know, people think that when they're in New York or Chicago or somewhere really metropolitan and very big and exciting, it's like that's where the best is. No, all of that stuff that people bring to the cities for people to spend a bunch of money on, it's curated from the
Right.
country.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether it be South Carolina, somewhere in Italy, or somewhere in Spain, or somewhere in Africa,
Yeah.
it's all curated from the countryside.
Good point.
And
Really good
so
point.
for me, that is kind of what melded my artistry with just the way I grew up. It's like I just started expressing, what my life and what my experiences have been. And to me, they're very beautiful. So
You had the
that's
experience basically that people are paying millions of dollars to
right,
have.
right.
You
So
came from
I'm
it.
about to say, let's talk about that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
leather is like one of the like oldest, professions in the world. Can you
Mhm.
tell us
Leather
about how
pro-
you got started with making leather and your attraction to it?
So, I kind of told you about my attraction to it because as I started traveling and experiencing the world for myself, I was naturally drawn. I've been a serious wine drinker for a long time.
What's your
So,
favorite type of wine? Favorite grape?
so I don't have a favorite,
Oh,
right? No, I
okay.
mean, so
That's good.
yeah, I mean, I appreciate wine, right?
Yeah.
So, wine goes with whether or not I have friends coming over and we're just drinking wine. Or
Great point.
I love to cook.
Mhm.
I love to be in the kitchen. So, if I'm cooking something in particular, whether it be fish or poultry or quail or steak or lamb chops, then that's going to determine what I
What you're
drink.
drinking.
What I
Yeah.
drink.
Mhm.
And so I developed, my appreciation or my taste for particular wines. Obviously there are levels to everything and
Mhm.
quality to everything. So I curate what I like based on drinking it, but I don't have a favorite. If it's hot outside and it's the summer, I'm not drinking red. I'm going to drink white.
Very true.
Right? So
White, yeah, white rosé.
it's
Yeah.
easier drinking. It's,
Yeah.
but if it's cold, if it's like this, I don't know what happened today that we're back in spring
It's
again.
I
yeah,
don't know.
man. You see how we came
It's
dressed today? I
Colombia.
thought I was
And I'm
supposed to
like,
have
Welcome
long.
to
Yeah.
South Carolina.
But just if it's cold outside, then I do love wines that most people that don't drink wine like I do, they can't drink it.
That's why I asked, because
Yeah.
like when you actually drink wine
Yeah.
and you've had a chance to taste and go through wines, you'll start appreciating certain tastes. Like I like funky wines now. I did not before. Before I worked at a very fine 5-star restaurant. We had a huge, extensive wine list. We had to taste everything. We had to be trained on it, right? And so this specific, well, I'm gonna mess it up in my head at the moment. It's from Eastern Europe.
Mhm.
It's a white wine. I'm gonna mess up the name. I have to make sure I look at it. But it has a smell like old dirty socks.
What's the name of the wine? What kind of wine is it?
Gosh, I'm
Just
gonna
tell
give
me
you.
what you think it is.
I think it's not Grünerveltliner. It's not.
It's Gewürztraminer. So it's a
Right on the
German.
money. Right on
So
the money.
Gewürztraminer is a
Yeah.
German wine.
Yes.
And so I mean, I like Gewürztraminers and I like Rieslings.
Oh yeah, you're right on the money because my
Riesling,
wife, she's
yeah.
a big Riesling. She loves her dry
Yeah.
Riesling. But
Dried Riesling.
yeah, dry. She doesn't like sweet stuff. But I was just like, man, I didn't think I would like it because like you smell it and I'm like, ooh, what is this? And I taste it. I'm like, oh, amazing.
Mm.
Other than that, I like to drink Pinot. That's my favorite thing.
I
to
drink Sauv Blancs and Pinots.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. I love how it tastes. But yeah,
But so the I guess you asked me how did I start with
Yeah.
leather, and so it was when I traveled and started learning things like I naturally love wine, and I would always end up in the leather shop. So I remember going to Mexico. We're in Acapulco, and left Acapulco and went to Tasco, Mexico. Tasco, Mexico, is where all the silver mines are.
oh,
So when you look at silver,
mhm,
real silver has a stamp on it. It
mhm,
says 925.
mhm.
Right? The 925 signifies that it's pure as silver, and a lot of that silver comes from the mines in Tasco, Mexico. And I remember finding a leather shop in Tasco, Mexico, right below this church. Now everything's on the hillside. And all of the
Oh,
buildings are white, red terracotta roofs. I have
That's
pictures.
probably so pretty.
Yeah.
yeah, you know what it is.
So it's a very beautiful place in Mexico, and I found this leather shop right beneath this church that was built in like 1492, and it still had the
Dang.
gold on it.
Good gosh.
Yeah, when you
Dang.
get out of the U.S., man, you find real history
Yeah.
and real architecture.
Yeah.
But trips like that, you start discovering, man, I really love the leather. I have the bag to this day that I bought all those years ago from Tesco. But and then when I started dating Stacy, she's from Savannah, and there is a store there called Satchel.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a
That's his
store called
daughter's name.
Satchel is my daughter's name. Yeah,
Mhm.
but Satchel was
Oh.
a leather store.
Okay.
Aw.
And so, and this is before I ever did anything with leather, because
Okay.
I didn't start working with leathers, teaching myself until 2016,
Okay.
right?
Oh
So
wow.
It's pretty recent. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
I was actually doodling, drawing. People say they're drawing. I call them doodles, but I was actually doing that. And my son needed a bag because he would always have his stuff in my bag or my wife's bag. And so when that happened, I was like, okay, well, I'll make him a bag. Just because I was doodling, I'm a wine drinker, like I said, so I would not do I would not drink wine as much as I like it when
Yeah.
I got stressed out.
Gotcha.
So being an entrepreneur is it was very stressful, can be very stressful.
Yeah.
And so instead of drinking wine as much as I love it, I started doodling. So if you come to my studio, you'll see a lot of my doodles and things throughout the studio.
He could draw, y'all. He
Yeah,
could
I
really
believe
draw.
it. I like how he calls them
It ain't no
doodles. I like
like
calls them doodles.
yeah, it ain't no doodle. It's like
He's
good full blown
drawing.
sketches.
Yeah.
Like
No, I just do. I'm quirky, man. So I'm quirky.
I ain't angry about the modesty. It's a good thing. It's a good
I
thing.
draw all eyes or all lips or all
Yeah.
noses,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
But the point is, I stopped doing that when I started making the bag for my son,
Mhm.
and then I haven't doodled since then. So I mean, I have these people love them, but I don't doodle anymore. They're all in a book or somewhere. I have bunches of them. But I started doing leather, and people started asking for it, and that's how I started. It wasn't intentional. I didn't intend to do this.
Mhm.
It's just it's like on social media. Social media became big, and so you're keeping in touch with people that you grew up with. And I would say, hey, I cooked this today, or I'm trying to make this leather bag. Right?
Oh.
Just
Just to show you
this
something
is what I'm doing
something.
today.
Yeah.
I don't consider myself a chef, but sometimes I share that I cooked this today. It was the same thing with leather.
Gotcha.
But then that Christmas, I had people say, hey, you showed a bag. Can I get one of those bags? I want to give it for a Christmas gift. And I was like, what?
You want to buy a bag?
You want one of these? And that's honestly what happened. I was stitching everything by hand, and I bought a sewing machine.
How hard is that to
he does
do?
everything by hand. Like,
Well, the stitching by hand is
yeah.
tough. It's very difficult.
With leather, yes.
Yeah, you have to punch it. They're called
Yep.
they're chisels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or pinking irons.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I would do it. You'd have to make all of the holes and then go, that's not sustainable.
I was
Not
about to
for
say, I've
some-
watched people do this overseas, right? They
Yeah,
watch
but
the
they-
leather process, and bags are expensive.
And he also does his own dyeing, the dyeing process. So talking about that.
Yeah, so that bag starts off the same. I brought a couple of cases on the table.
Okay. Yeah.
All of
beautiful.
those start off the same color.
Wow. Can we show the cases?
Can they see it, Kev?
Wait,
It's in hold it up. The cigar cases. So yeah, explain to the different type of products that you do offer so for women also.
So I design a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Right. So I have I just kind of classify between bags and accessories.
Mhm.
But I'll make saddlebags. This is a briefcase.
Mm-hmm.
I love making weekenders. The weekenders that I make are named after my grandfather.
That's for the name.
My
Gotcha.
backpacks are named after my grandmother's.
Gotcha.
And then every piece has a name, and it's named for somebody in the family. But I do the accessories like the cigar cases and belts, and several other things.
Some leather cuffs,
Mhm.
crossbody bags.
Yeah, and some
Mhm.
things with the website and with things.
Mike
growing
should have
up
been
there.
here today.
Right.
I'm afraid for Mike. He ain't feeling he's
Mike
under the
is
weather.
our
He would have
other
loved
guy.
to see this.
Yeah.
He loves those leather bags and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so between the bags, the accessories, and now the fragrances, those are the three things that I design.
Beautiful. Well, what I want to do right now is give you the chance to just show some of the stuff that we have on the table, specifically the book, the bag, and then we can go through these fragrances so that we can get some scents on. Because we
Okay.
never had a chance to do this. This is really cool, man. So,
He's so excited.
yeah, man. So, what would you like to start with?
Whatever you'd like to.
That book.
The book. So the book is just a compilation of some of the designs that I've done, and not all of them are I've designed a lot of pieces, man. I make every single piece, and I have pieces all over, right? I
Wow.
can't make all of the pieces all the time.
That's what I was
So
wondering.
the book is kind of an archive of some things that I've done in the process of doing them, but they're not all active designs that someone can just call up today and get.
And you make your own patterns?
Yes,
That's Satchel.
Hey, Satchel.
that's my daughter.
Yeah.
She's also one of my models.
Oh, you gotta put the children to work. Put the children to work. And I have a question. So if somebody did want a bag or et cetera from you, do you have like a season that you do, like a season of bags that you do, or
So
short
I'm getting
runs?
to that point now. So I do make every single piece, and we're going to production at some point. I'm trying to choose that production facility. So because I can't
You can't sustain it.
I can't do it with
Yeah.
Christmas comes around and people start asking, and they don't prepare for it in this last minute, and they're like, "Hey, can I
I
get that
know.
back?"
That's what I was about to say.
It
And like,
about
I
kills
can't
me
just pump
sometimes.
that out.
But so I'm actually moving away, and I've been trying to do this for a year and a half now.
Mhm.
I'm actually trying to move away from making all the pieces because it's just not.
I gotta get a piece from you before you start making pieces, so I can get an official original. And another thing that I want to point out, 'cause I thought this was interesting, is the symbol that you have here.
The logo?
The
Yeah,
logo.
it's a scorpion.
Yes.
Can you explain that scorpion logo?
So my brand story is told around L11.
Okay.
So L11 is kind of it encapsulates everything about me and what I've created. Um, I was born on the 7th day of the 11th month. My name is Laddie. I'm a lawyer. I'm a lobbyist.
Wow.
I do leather.
Wow.
All of that. So
That was not
the
it was
L.
not set up.
Yeah, and L is an upside down
That's what's
7.
good.
And
Yeah.
7 is the day that I was born. 11 is the month that I was born, and also my last name, because the H is an 11 with a bar in it.
Aren't it?
And so it just tells the story of me, of how I was raised and became a lawyer, and then found my passion in leather. And it just tells the significance of the letters and the numbers. And the scorpion, obviously, me being a Scorpio, became a natural symbol for me to express the L11 story.
Oh, man.
Look,
Man, the
he
crap- I'm not
just
gonna lie.
wanted to touch it.
Had to.
He just wanted to
When you
touch
walked
it.
in, I'll say this, man. When you walked in, great smell came in the room.
Good.
I'm telling you, man, like the
Laddie's an
fragrance of it
experience. He's in
and
the
et
whole
cetera. I was
experience.
just like, you got to be kidding me. I have to see. Whoa, stop playing with me. Nah, seriously. So, all right. So this is a piece that you made yourself?
I make every single
Yeah,
piece.
So this
every
is-
single piece.
I'm
He's
trying not
literally
to make
in the
every single piece, but
studio,
I make
like
every single
all
piece.
So you
day.
put all of this work in?
I dye the leather, I stitch the leather, I make every
Oh
pocket.
my goodness gracious. And I'm telling you, man. Yeah,
It's
that's
like
solid.
one of one.
That's a one of one. You can tell that's solid. I feels good, smells good.
No, my favorite. I mean, I always loved the leather, but
Yeah.
I'm more
Right.
attracted to the fragrances now.
It's time.
So
You
every
ready?
time I go
Get
see
out of her
Laddie, I'm
way.
like, I need a new scent
I'm
today.
gonna get out of her
Like-
way. I'm gonna let her have her fun.
So definitely tell us about the fragrances and like how'd you get started crafting it, making it? How long does its process take? Branding it.
Yeah, the fragrance is real. I've always been into fragrance.
Mhm.
I have a pretty sensitive nose.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, everything in life is really organic, right? So you don't just decide, hey, I want to do something cool, right? I mean, I think people think what I do is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
Purposefully.
Yeah, it wasn't what I always decided I wanted to do because I think it's dope. I started doing the leather, which was very natural, and there was a period of time when I was just doing leather. The first thing, black, white, young, old, artistic, not into artistic. There are two things that people always say as soon as they walk into the studio. First thing people always say is, "Man, this is a vibe."
Yeah.
And the second thing they always say is, "Man, it smells great in here."
Mhm. It does,
Right.
y'all. I'm telling you.
And it's just like I don't like the way my voice sounds.
Yeah.
I don't smell my studio.
Got you.
He's
Right.
there
Understood.
all the time.
I'm
That's
there all
why.
the time.
Yeah, you're like, this is normal.
Yeah.
But it was like the universe, like talking to me, because the first thing people say when they walk in is, "Man, it smells great in here." And they're talking about the leather and they're talking about the incense and just the experience of coming to the studio. And so that was kind of the thing that started really laying the groundwork. Although I'd always been into fragrance,
Mhm.
it's not, what I set out to do.
Never set out as that.
But then as people came into the studio and I realized that they wanted to take part of that experience with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that really got my mind flowing more artistically with what I was doing. And I realized that I could do it because my family brought me a scent that they made for me for Christmas.
Oh, wow.
And so that act got me in the studio where they had them made. And I went and I was there with the people that owned it. And the guy was like, man, you're really good at this, right?
He could literally smell something and be like, yeah, that's apple cider. And
You're
just
real
start
talk. You
naming stuff.
sense
Yeah.
I have
olfactory senses
a
are
sensitive
on.
nose, yeah. Yeah, I have a sensitive nose.
Wow.
So, but I'm from the country, man.
You can, you got a chance to smell real smells.
Yeah,
Everything.
I'm
Yeah,
from the
so
country,
yeah,
so.
you had experience.
So anyway, that started the process. And then, so for me, once you start that process and you start expressing yourself,
Mhm.
what has become unique about my fragrances, and I've gotten this from the industry, not from myself. I had a guy come down that works with Cody. Cody owns Gucci and Tiffany's and all. They all of those since Burberry,
The house.
they're under Cody.
Yep,
Right?
one
A guy came down from there to visit me, and he was like, "Man, your experience, you telling the story of where these fragrances come from is something that no one does."
Mm-hmm.
So you can buy whatever, even the larger brands, the Tom Fords and all the scents that people wear. They smell. Some of them smell good,
Yeah.
but people have no sense of them. And when they come into my studio, they actually understand why I crafted the fragrance the way I crafted it, because it's coming from a place. I'm not just saying vanilla and peaches smell good together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually telling you the story of how I grew up in my grandmother's kitchen.
You're not a metrics man when it comes to making sense.
No,
Mm.
it's about me imparting, those. Man, when I was a kid, I'm 11 years old, right?
Yeah.
People can't relate to this much, but my grandfather was a farmer. So he would go to the farmer's market and he would come back with bushels of peaches on the truck. Now I'm a kid, I'm out there with my cousins, and my grandmother didn't work. We're on a real farm. She would go out if we were having chicken for dinner. I would catch the chicken. She would wring the chicken's neck, and that's what we would have for dinner. We had peaches on our batter bread at night. Peach preserves or just fresh peaches or canned peaches. My grandmother canned those peaches.
Yeah.
And so what happened for me was my grandfather would go to the farmer's market, come back with peaches. I'm watching Soul Train on Saturday because usually that's when we got it done.
Yeah.
And my grandmother and my cousins out there cutting up peaches and putting them in these large dish pans, They take up 2 eyes on the stove. And my grandmother has these peaches cut up on the stove, and she's putting bags of Dixie Crystal sugar in them. And we're watching Soul Train, and one eye is still open. And they got to keep everything away from the stove, but they're sulfurate because they have a straightening comb, and she's doing my
at the same
cousin's
time.
hair.
Yeah.
And so that's that experience of fragrance, right? Because when you come from a family that cans figs and peaches and pears and apples, that's an olfactory experience, man. That's just
Right.
It's just common to the way I grew up.
Yeah.
So I'm telling that story, but then, when I tell that story through nectar, how innocently I started loving peaches in my grandmother's kitchen, how it became my favorite fruit. It also became the symbol for what me as a man identifies with the most, which is women. And so nectar on the leaf became my coming of age from falling in love with the fruit in my grandmother's kitchen to falling in love with the fruit that is a woman. And so I had to express that differently when I went to nectar on the leaf.
Oh,
And
wow.
so-
Let 'em smell it. Let 'em smell
Oh,
it.
she's
Let
waiting
'em
for
smell
this.
it. You want to
Let's
smell it? Let 'em smell it.
Yeah, let's get a smell on. I gotta ask you this because I think you would understand this. A lot of people think I'm crazy. I don't realize this because you grew up in the country. The smell of tobacco curing in a barn.
Mhm.
It smells like sweets, like honey smacks.
Tobacco's really sweet.
Yeah,
That's really sweet.
it has a good smell. I don't want to burn it, but I like how it smells.
So
Just by
I'm not going to
itself.
show you nectar first.
Okay.
I'm going to show you lovers in the leaf.
All right, lovers in the leaf.
Lovers in the leaf is tobacco.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The
I told you. It's
serendipity.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's tobacco, honey, cherry blossom.
Okay.
And I'm not going to give you the whole formula, but It's I made this fragrance because it's what it says, lovers in the leaf. And I enjoy tobacco and I enjoy the essence of smoke sometimes. And I wanted a fragrance that could allow lovers to share that smoke and express themselves throughout the evening and have a fragrance that kind of accentuated that and expressed that at the same time. So I made Lovers in the Leaf, and that's this first one here.
We got to zoom in on his
you're
facial
good,
expression. Let's give smell it. Look at him. Look at you know you want to smell it.
Come smell this. Nah, because you don't get to get that. Watch this. Smell that, man. Yeah. No, because I know what he's talking about. The scent, the smell. No, you took it and made it. That's an elevated scent.
Then nectar. So this is the, and there is a story that goes along with this. One day we're going to do the story on video. And
keep this over here.
Yeah, you can line that.
Okay.
So this is nectar. To me, this is innocent. So artistically, I think artists are telling a story, right? The artistic story for me really is, because I'm from the country. Now this gets to the other side. I grew up in the church. My father's a minister.
Okay.
And so when you grow up like that, you know, we have certain morals and values.
Yes.
About life and nature and the do's and the don'ts, right? So being a good country boy coming from a, you know, Christian family and all that stuff, I was raised right.
Yeah.
I don't always obey.
But I know better. I may not do better. Yeah.
But I was raised a certain way. And as you become an adult, you realize that the way you were raised sets the stage for who you become, but it doesn't always define it. And I think that there is this line from our innocence, which I equate with nature, to the forbidden, which is what I equate with the knowledge of ourself, and really expressing that regardless of how anyone else feels about it, right? And so I think that's a journey.
Yeah.
So for me, that journey started off very innocently with how I fell in love with the fruit, which was in my grandmother's kitchen. And like I said, the fruit eventually, there are all types of fruit. And one is a woman, if you're for a man. And that's the next fragrance I'll show you. But that's the innocent, bright, beautiful.
Nah, you're right. You know what you're doing, man. Wait. It smells like, and I'm gonna tell you this, it doesn't smell unnatural.
Right. It's an essence. Like most fragrances are like really, they're really synthetic.
Yeah.
And they're strong because people want people to smell them when they walk in the door.
Yeah.
But I think the fragrance should be an essence of you. When someone walks by smelling like the same fragrance that somebody else has, they go, oh man, that smells like.
And it reminds me of.
Right.
Yeah.
But when someone has a beautiful fragrance, like when a woman walks by, and I'm sure women have the same feeling about men, but I don't know anything about that. When a woman walks by me and she has just a beautiful essence of her, an aura that's left in the wake, I don't smell her coming towards me. I smell her like just in that instant when she passes. That is magical for me.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Nah, he's not lying. That's true. Yeah, that's
and
legit.
This is why I want everybody to experience Laddie telling the story and like come to the studio and to get the whole vibe, because it's the whole experience.
Yeah.
Like really be blown away.
So the story tells you how I was sitting in church when she came in, and how I just stolen peaches that morning because my grandmother had just canned peaches. And now I'm sitting in church and the preacher is preaching about temptation. And the wages of sin. And this girl is in church, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what I can say on this podcast, so I'll be very.
Anything.
You can say anything.
Well, I'll just put it this way: peach. We all know what a peach is.
We know what you know what that
right?
emoji means.
And so there was a very simple moment for me.
Yeah.
Being in love innocently with the juice trickling down my chin. You know, the sweetness on my tongue.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, it's in my grandmother's kitchen. I'm eating peaches.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's not erotic.
It's not, yeah.
But it's a total engagement of your senses, which leads to eroticism. And that eroticism happened for me in church.
Wow.
Because there you have nature. I believe growing up in the country that we are afraid of nature and the
Yes.
urges it
Yeah.
produces,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
we preach against it and we do all that. And so I'm sitting in church and the preacher's preaching about temptation
It's
and the
crazy.
wages of sin. And there's this girl that I'd never seen before. And she don't look anything like anybody else. And I just stole peaches that morning. So the taste
It's still there. The
is still on
experience
my
is,
lips,
and
man.
you're tying it to that
It got me
person.
thinking
And-
of the
and
Garden
she-
of Eden.
That's
Yeah.
what it is.
That's
Yeah.
what it is.
That's what
But
it
we
is.
all go through our own Garden of Eden.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to put it into words and put it into an expression for people because, sometimes we say things artistically for the first time
Yeah.
in a way that people haven't said it.
Right.
Exactly.
I'm able to do that with my fragrances. And that's what happened for me when she walked by and her sundress, the scent, and
Oh,
her
she had a
body,
sundress on?
And you have
Dang,
this.
why she do that at the church?
Immediately,
Sundress.
what you're going to think is that frame looks like a peach. And so you want to have
I like
this.
how he's talking. I'm going to take his, man.
He's stealing your metaphors
Yep.
over here. Your analogies.
You done messed
like,
me up. Watch this. Yep, I agree. I'm going to talk about my wife like this when I get home.
When you have that experience, man, me, when I had that experience, you're shy because I'm not a man. I'm a boy grown into a man.
Yeah.
But our merger with our essence and our nature, man, begins, and there's nothing wrong with it.
No.
There's nothing taboo, but we've been taught that
'Cause
these things are taboo.
And I'm connecting with him because that's how I was raised. We were raised in the church. Preacher would be telling us, one of our preachers, he was an old farmer, and he remembered the Bible from back to front. I've read the Bible 3 times all the way through. I had it memorized because I wanted to be a preacher growing up. That's what I
Right.
wanted to do, was be a preacher, right? And so I was very afraid of certain things. Like I'm talking
That's right.
virgin all the way through till college and everything, right? Don't drink, not touch nothing at
That's
all.
right.
So people are like, dang, why you act like this? I'm like, y'all better be happy I didn't become a preacher. I'd be horrible. Y'all would not. I would be hard to deal with.
Listen, man, you're sitting in the church. There's a natural moment when, you just look at a peach in your grandmother's kitchen, and at some point after you take that first bite and realize you love it, you love the sight of it, you love the colors,
Yeah, the
You know,
curve.
you smell it before it even enters your mouth because peaches,
They have a
you
great
smell the
aroma.
peach,
Mhm.
and then you feel the peach, and this, everybody knows that you know how to pick a perfect peach. If it's too hard, if it's too soft,
It's real.
it has just the right firmness and consistency. So the feel of it.
Mhm.
Then when you bite into it, man, the taste of it,
Mhm.
the juice trickling down, all of that stuff, you naturally just go through that innocently. Your grandmother feels the same way,
True.
But there is a moment when you see that proverbial peach and you see it, you want to smell it, you want to taste it, you want to feel it. That moment happens very naturally. And that happened for me, and that became nectar on the leaf.
Ah.
It's sexy.
Dang, you're
It's
It's his
dangerous,
facial,
man.
It's his facial expressions. I'll have to put you on that commercial.
Yeah, man. You have to give-
You should smell it on though when it mixes
That's
with your
what I was
chemistry.
about to say.
And
yeah,
that's the
because
thing that
yes.
on each person is
It's
a different.
different.
I wear
thing.
that one, man. I wear nectar on the leaf. I love that.
You like this right here? This right
It's
here?
spicy.
That one?
It's fruit. Like it's what you want it. It's rounded.
I think that's a very sexy scent.
Yeah, it is.
It's a very, to me, sexy and erotic are two. I don't say that very much. So
Yeah.
I got to say sex and erotic now because whenever you see leaf,
Yeah.
that's my code word for that.
Oh.
So when you see nectar
gotcha.
on or lover's in,
Yeah.
you'll notice that there are 2 fragrances there. The last one I'm going to show you. The first one I showed you was, nectar was the second one I
Yeah.
showed you. And that's just about the innocence in my grandmother's kitchen. So there's no leaf in it because that's just the
Right.
peach.
Right.
You're
It's
right.
just-
You're
it's
right.
just
And then
the nature of
citrus
me.
it. Yeah, it's in
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
And then oud and blue. Oud and blue is not.
Oh.
And
It's the best one.
And it's very sensuous, but
It's the best
I'm
one.
not telling an erotic story as much as I'm telling the story as I see it
Mhm.
of who I think the person that takes us to that point where we realize that there is somewhat of a conflict between our gentle nature
Yeah.
and the forbidden.
Yeah.
And there's always a moment and there's always a person that takes you over that edge. A person that takes you over that edge, I think, has certain qualities to them,
Hmm.
right? That's what this fragrance expresses for me, because I think that sort of connection with someone is really deep rooted, like a tree,
It has to be.
right?
Mhm.
But it's expansive, and it allows you, especially in an ideal world for us as lovers,
Mhm.
a woman wants a man that is going to allow her to feel and know love,
Mhm.
but to have the freedom to experience life and not be judged by it. And
Yep.
so that's like an expansive sky or ocean. That's the blueness of it.
Mhm.
This fragrance is called Oud and Blue. Oud comes from a tree.
Mhm.
And of course, you'll see when you express. But this is what I think a person experiences in that moment with a person that allows them to let go.
Now you could be yourself.
You're a dangerous man. Dang. Well, wait.
You like that?
It's like soft and subtle, but
Yes.
still strong enough to
Yes.
capture you
That's
and
the
be
thing.
like, yep,
It's strength and comfort. It's like,
in one scent. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yo. Man.
So how can
Wow.
people like actually purchase
You
your
can go to our
items?
website, lhowardleather.com.
Be on that website today.
They can hit, go to our social media pages.
Mm-hmm.
Type in
L
that
Howard
name.
Leather. Most of them on Instagram is L.Howard Leather.
Okay.
On Facebook is just L Howard Artistry and Leather. And then, of course, the website, like I said, www.lhowardleather.com.
You see down Tamaya over here, he done messed her up with them scents.
Man, Tamaya's always stealing my fragrance.
I can
Yeah,
tell
I would literally,
she
I would
is.
literally
can
come
tell
over. I'd be
she's
like,
ready to take
on my way
scent.
out. Yeah, on my way out.
Man, I will say this. You're one of the first person that we had that bought in a product like
Mhm.
this, and the experience of the product, man, I'm telling you, sir, amazing. The storytelling behind
Yeah.
it. I know you don't like your voice, but I like your voice.
Yeah.
So I know I've never seen anybody put together fragrances in this sense. Because I've seen people sell oils and all this other stuff, right? But to put together the fragrance, the story behind the fragrance, the explanation, I understood exactly what you're talking about. I went back to my childhood sitting in the pew. When you were talking about this, I was like,
I should have
I was looking at that. I was looking at
Yeah.
that young lady at the church, and I should be looking at her at the church. I'm gonna read my Bible. I'm gonna read my Bible while this is going on. So,
And then you read Song of Solomon, right?
Stop playing. Yeah, that messed you
Then
up
you
even
read the Song of
worse.
Solomon. And
That messed you up even worse.
I should have brought another from my last fragrance. I have 11 that I've made.
Wow.
I only have 4 that I make available to people.
Mm-hmm.
But the last one that I made is it really tells my story of growing up in the country. It's called Summer in Sumter. And I can tell you the story really quickly.
Okay.
And I ramble a little bit with it, so bear with me for 2 seconds. But growing up, I'm 53 years old. Okay. So I'm old enough to where we stayed outside all the time. I had to cut the grass with the push lawnmower, grew up on 2 acres of grass, got to push it, right?
Hard work.
So, and I grew up on the farm with my grandfather, like I've already told you. So all of my summers were like that. So I remember, in the 80s, we didn't have air conditioning. I mean, we had air conditioning, but we didn't run the air conditioning all day, every day like we do now. My parents turned it on when it was necessary to turn it on. So during a normal day in the country when I grew up, the windows were open.
Open, yeah.
Right? So I remember, man, those days cutting the grass, right? And you know what fresh cut grass smells like.
Amazing, yeah.
And I had a horse out back. I lived in the country, so there was the pine and all that stuff. And I would cut the grass and go inside, and you can't be sweaty and stinking your mother's house, right?
Nah.
So I would cut the grass and go inside. And after you do something like that and you take that shower, first thing you're gonna do on a warm summer day, man, is fall asleep.
Oh, immediately.
You fall asleep under the window. Now you got that good sleep because the slobber's on your hand. You wake up, you're like, oh, you've only been asleep for 30 minutes, but it feels like you've been asleep for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
but you wake up and you're like dazed, right?
Uh-huh.
I would wake up like that, man, and the first thing that would capture me is the gardenia blowing in on the warm air.
Yeah.
Because my parents had a gardenias under all the windows.
Oh, that's so smart.
Right. And so that would blow in on the air, and I would wake up and I would catch it, and I would catch the grass at the same time. And then I associate the dirt because I sat on the tractor with my grandfather wearing the seat out on my pants. So there's always that dirt and those white creams flying down. So I see that with the grass and the doggone gardenias. And there was always honeysuckle. I wrote a speech in college one time about how the honeysuckle is just always in the summertime where I grew up, perfuming the air. And it's not summer unless you're eating watermelon. And my grandmother made a coconut pie, something like that. All of those
that
things.
is the right thing.
Yeah. So that experience for me is what I call my summer in Sumter.
Wow.
And then my last fragrance is called Summer in Sumter. And you just smell it.
I had to bring them to the studio.
You didn't have to. My
Yeah.
wife, her family, they're from Sumter.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
she'll
why he's
love
saying
it.
all this stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, yo, you better stop playing. Good Lord, I'm
Yeah.
mess with her today. Like,
You're like, you missed out.
you missed out. She's like, I told you she should have came because her friends in town that she has to be. I was
Yeah.
like, she was supposed to come by with me today, but
Yeah.
man, I gotta shake your hand on that, brother. I
Yeah,
appreciate you. I greatly appreciate you coming.
Yeah.
I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you having me.
I know we're gonna wrap up, but just to say, man, we do appreciate you bringing everything in and sharing your stories with us. Your experience, your expertise. I didn't even bother you about anything about lobbying or anything,
Right.
Because I didn't have to. I'll get you next time.
All right.
But I do want to sign off. This is DJ and what?
Tamaya.
Skip in the back.
Yep.
And our esteemed guest.
Thanks for having me, man. I
We
really
appreciate it, Mr. Howard. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us today. Until next time, tell somebody next to them that you love them, that you care about them, and we will see you later. Peace.